Deep underground, a fearsome dragon jealously guards his glittering hoard of stolen dwarven gold. You might think you've heard this story before, but it's likely not the one you're thinking. This isn't the legendary lizard Smaug from Tolkien's 1937 novel, The Hobbit. This story is much older, dating as far back as the 13th century, and is called the Volsunga Saga. This epic Old Norse poem describes the rise and fall of the Volsung clan, including the famous Sigurd, the Dragon Slayer. But before we tell that story, let's have a look at some of the other influences from Norse mythology that likely inspired Tolkien. It's clear that Tolkien had a lot of time for Germanic mythology, even transcribing his own version of the poem Beowulf. So the stories that I'm about to tell in this video were undoubtedly known to the father of modern fantasy and likely inspired his genre-defining work. Before we pour the mead and sit around the fire for some Old Norse storytelling, please don't forget to like and share this video and hit the subscribe button for more fun fantasy content like this. Norse mythology begins with two warring factions of gods, the Aesir and the Vanir. Tolkien clearly took inspiration from this when naming his own divine beings, the Ainur and Valar, who shaped and ruled Arda, the world where Tolkien's stories take place. Other names from Middle-earth have their origins in Norse mythology, such as Middle-earth itself, which comes from the Vikings' name for the human realm, Midgard. In the Prose Edda, the largest and most detailed surviving source of Norse mythology, you can also find all the names for the dwarves from The Hobbit. Events that take place in Tolkien's world also share similarities with some Norse legends. For example, during the quest for the Silmarils, Beren attempts to use the glittering gem to fend off Karkaroth, the giant wolf of Angband. Unfortunately unabated, the beast bites off Beren's hand, swallowing both limb and jewel whole. This tale mirrors the legend of the great wolf Fenrir. When the gods tried to trick Fenrir into letting them bind him, the wolf insisted that one of the gods place their hand in his mouth as insurance. The god of war Tyr stepped up to the task and had his hand bitten off when the gods refused to untie the beast. Undoubtedly one of the most memorable moments from Lord of the Rings is when Gandalf faces off against the Balrog on the bridge of Khazad-dûm in the Mines of Moria.
You shall not pass!
The Balrog, known as Durin's Bane, bears a striking resemblance to another flaming sword-wielding giant from Norse mythology, Surtur, who is prophesied to battle the Norse god Freyr during Ragnarok.
Thor, son of Odin. Surtur, son of a bitch, you're still alive.
Another prophecy associated with Ragnarok is the collapse of the Bifrost Bridge, which connects Asgard and Midgard. Tolkien cleverly combines both elements in his story for the narrative twisting moment when the Fellowship loses their leader. Norse mythology was clearly a big influence on Tolkien and his writing, and this no doubt includes the most famous of the Norse epics, the Volsunga Saga. Like all the best hero origins, this story starts with a sword being pulled from a stone, or in this instance, a tree. The bewitched blade, known as Gram, was capable of cutting through anything: people, stones, steel, Quendalar. It was wielded by the famous hero Sigmund, who used it to achieve many notable feats worthy of their own video, but for the sake of efficiency we'll jump cut to the bit where he crosses weapons with the most powerful god in the Norse pantheon, Odin. Sigmund is mortally wounded and his blade shattered into pieces. The shards, along with Sigmund's only living son, Sigurd, are taken to the land of the Sea Danes for safety. There, the young Sigurd becomes the apprentice to a master smith, Reagan. When Sigurd comes of age, Reagan reveals himself to be the youngest son of the sorcerer Hreidmar. His older brother Otter was a shapeshifter, and one day whilst out fishing in the form of an otter, he was struck on the head by a stone and killed. The wielder of said stone was none other than the trickster god Loki. Hreidmar demanded that the life debt of his son be paid in gold, enough gold to completely cover Otter's skin. Only one creature was thought to possess such a large amount of treasure, the dwarf Andvari, who owned a magical ring called Anvernort, meaning Andvari's gift, which blessed its wearer with immense wealth. Andvari kept his treasure in a cave behind a waterfall, and one day, whilst disguised as a pike, yes, there is a lot of shapeshifting in this story, was caught in a net by Loki. The god forced the dwarf to surrender his gold, including Anvernort. But before handing over the ring, Andvari placed a curse on it that would bring bad fortune to whoever wore it. As promised, Loki delivers the gold to Hreidmar, but intended on keeping the ring for himself. However, a single whisker of Otter's pelt peeked through the impressive pile of treasure, and so Loki was forced to hand over the ring as well. The debt paid, all appears well, except for Reagan's other older brother, Fafnir, who covets the ring now worn by his father. One night, Fafnir sneaks into Hreidmar's chambers and murders the old sorcerer, claiming the ring and treasure as his own. He moves the gold to his lair and becomes so possessed with protecting it that he transforms into a fearsome dragon. Yes, more shapeshifting, I know. Back in the land of the Sea Danes, Reagan charges Sigurd with the task of slaying his brother and retrieving his family's gold in return for a fair share of the treasure. The master smith takes the shards of Gram and reforges them into a weapon capable of killing a dragon. The two travel to Fafnir's lair, and Reagan instructs Sigurd to dig a trench outside the entrance. That way, when the serpent slithers from its hollow, Sigurd will be able to stab the beast in its soft underbelly from below. Smart thinking. When Reagan retreats to hide, Odin appears to Sigurd and tells him to dig several more trenches to allow the boiling blood of the dragon to flow away from our hero. And as darkness falls, the dragon emerges from its lair and crawls over the ditch. Sigurd thrusts Gram upwards into the beast's belly and straight through its heart. Reagan returns from hiding and rejoices at his brother's demise. He instructs Sigurd to cut out Fafnir's heart and cook it so that he can devour the organ. You'd think that a fire-breathing dragon's heart would at least be medium rare when you remove it, but I guess Reagan likes his meat well done. Whilst cooking the heart, Sigurd burns his hands, and after sucking the fat from his fingers, the musical chirps of the birds above suddenly twists and morphs into Old Norse. The birds talk of treachery and Reagan's plan to murder his apprentice once the heart is consumed, so that he can keep all the treasure for himself. With this warning in mind, Sigurd wields Gram once again and puts an end to Hreidmar's only remaining son. He decides to eat the heart himself and claim the treasure as his own, including the cursed ring. This story contains many parallels to The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. As previously mentioned, we have a fire-breathing dragon guarding a hoard of gold that is stolen from a dwarf. But we also have a broken ancestral blade that needs to be reforged. Interestingly, Sigmund's sword is broken by the one-eyed god Odin, who is a clear inspiration for Tolkien's antagonist Sauron, who breaks Elendil's sword Narsil, which is then reforged into Aragorn's sword Anduril. But overall, the biggest similarity between the Volsunga Saga and Tolkien's writing is the theme of corrupting power. The power and wealth that come with Anvernort ultimately demoralizes whoever wears the ring and eventually leads to their downfall. Like in The Hobbit, the quest to retrieve a lost treasure is seen as a noble act, but the real drama is in resisting its debasing draw once obtained. Thorin Oakenshield fails to share the hoard of Erebor, and this ultimately results in the Battle of the Five Armies and his own demise. Like Thorin and Frodo, at the end of the story when it seems like evil is about to be defeated once and for all, Reagan fails to resist the seduction of the ring and plans to kill his own apprentice so that he can keep all the treasure for himself. Again, this is what ultimately leads to his death. And the curse doesn't die with Haridma's last son. The ring goes on to cause more bad luck for Sigurd, but that's a story for another video. So those are some of the Norse myths that inspired Tolkien. But we're not done yet, and in the next video we are going to explore some of the legends native to Tolkien's home, Celtic mythology. So please do subscribe if that sounds like your cup of tea. As always, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.